Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Welcome into Sportsmemo's betting podcast, College Football Edition, the Bowl Edition, where we're bringing in our one of our college football experts, Robbie Vino, to go over Saturday's bowl slate, and we'll have him back on next Tuesday to do next week's bowl games as well, and keep going all throughout bowl season. But without further ado, Robbie Vino, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am good today, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's bowl season, Robbie, and I'll be honest, this is my favorite time of year. I'm in the South right now, so the weather is really nice, and it's bowl season, which I love betting bowl season. Plus, we got college basketball going on, NBA, NFL. NFL's on fire, by the way, and I mean that from a fan standpoint and a betting standpoint. But Robbie, it's bowl season. I mean, how do you feel about betting this time of year?
Yeah, I very rarely do I go to Twitter with some type of personal post. It's always generated. My Twitter posts are generated around, the ATS records for teams or, it's all sports related. But I had to go to Twitter last week just to let it be known that I get fired up for bowl season, Drew. You and I would be very compatible with a couple of beers and a bunch of TVs on this coming Saturday. I tell you, it's my favorite time of the year. I go, I've seen a lot of bowl games come and go. In fact, in that Twitter post, I think I remember putting up "Bring back the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl" way back in the late 70s. So love this time of year. For those who – and we hear it a lot that there's a bunch of meaningless bowl games out there. And, for those who don't like all 41 – I'd beg to differ, but they all have point spreads. They all have totals, and that's what attracts us to them, amongst other things. I just, to me, it's better than the NCAA Final Four tournament, so I'll take that stance. I just love this time of season.
Yeah, me too. And it's funny you bring up Saturday, having a couple of beers, watching the games. Absolutely. I feel the same way. That'd be a fun time. One of my friends, she invited me to like her Christmas party for her company. And I'm like, well, wait, what time does it start here? I mean, the last game I can record and watch, but it's like I'm still not over college football Saturdays, But, Robbie, we got a bunch on the slate. 201, 202 starting us off. We'll do the regular bowl games, also throw in some FCS games throughout. But we got North Texas, Utah State leading us off. 201, 202, 2 p.m. Eastern kick on ESPN, I believe. 67.5 the total. Looks like Utah State now at as low as 7.5 at Chris, seeing some 8 and 8.5, so a good one to shop around on. But Robbie, the story here is this one opened 10, so we've almost had a 2.5 point move here of North Texas mean green money. I'm thinking a lot of it has to do with the coaching change. Head coach for Utah State gone. OC and DC going with them. So you know what that means. A lot of change, can be tricky situation here. How would you look to bet the Mean Green and Aggies?
All right, a couple of things here real quick. I tried to, for the listeners' benefit, Drew, I tried to kind of tier these analysis individually with 5 different things. So we're going to go ahead and start these off with weather situations in these games. Now, for the first time in a long time that I can remember, we don't really have weather in any of these bowl games, bad weather. Normally, a couple of these bowl games, don't have the best of weather. But in this particular one, you get a 12 o'clock local start. Temperature, the high 52 degrees. There's no chance of rain here in Albuquerque. So real good, low winds, real good conditions to play this bowl game. And we'll get into these coaching changes. And And one late bit of breaking news that I think everybody should be aware of, and I think it actually spurred some movement in this line here this afternoon. But for Utah State, as you mentioned, Drew, Matt Wells, he took almost his entire staff, if not the entire staff, to Lubbock, Texas with him. Matt Wells doesn't coach this game. His co-defensive coordinator, defensive line coach, assistant head coach Frank Mila, he's going to coach this game on an interim basis. But the biggest news of all, which I don't think broke until early this morning, is that offensive coordinator David Yost is there with the team. He's the only coach, the only full-time coach that stayed behind to coach this bowl game. He's been running practices. He's the chief play caller for this team. And to me, the most important coach on that staff, I mean, Matt Wells, obviously the head coach, but David Yost, the very young, mid-30s, late 30s offensive wizard that put this offense together this year. He stays. He calls plays for this game. It's hugely important, and I think that's why you saw this total go from 66 up to 67 here this afternoon. People just becoming aware of the fact that Yost is going to stick around, so huge news there. The other huge news, I think, from a North Texas standpoint, is the fact that Seth Luttrell turned down Kansas State and decided to stay. That always makes the players happy. Seth Luttrell being in Denton, Texas now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're either looking to re-sign him or did re-sign him, but he did turn down. We'll talk about the head coach of that team a little bit later in the analysis here. But that, like I say, that's huge for the players. So from a situational and motivational standpoint here, you expect fully focused efforts out of both of these teams. I know that number's come down from 10 to 7.5, but I'd beg to differ a little bit, or at least I'd put the brakes on all the North Texas money in that game, just solely based on the fact that Yost is going to call the plays for Utah State here. Jordan Love and company, obviously very, very good with that. But I expect a big effort from both teams. I don't think, in these early bowl games, motivation is usually listed as the number one piece of a handicap, the number one ingredient. You're looking for motivational edges. I don't think you'll find any here. Each team lost their bowl game last year, which I think is important. UNT gets blown out 50-30 by Troy in a New Orleans Bowl. Utah State loses a heartbreaker to Arizona to New Mexico State in the Arizona Bowl. They lose 26-20 in overtime. So both teams looking to atone for last year's bowl losses. I think one big situational edge here that goes to Utah State is the altitude factor. Utah State far more used to playing in altitude than North Texas, which you go through their schedule, they didn't play in altitude, whereas Utah State plays 3 games a year in altitude. They didn't play in Albuquerque this season. They played last season, so certainly used to that stadium and the rarefied air that goes with it. But I think that, when you put that into play here and combine it with the pace that Utah State's offense runs at, which is as fast as any in the country, altitude could play a factor here against North Texas and in favor of Utah State. Fundamentally in this game, I feel like Utah State might be splitting hairs here, but they're a shade more diverse offensively, simply based on the fact that they have the two-headed running situation here. Darwin Thompson and Gerald Bright make for a two-headed machine. They really balance out the rushing yardage amongst each other, and they balance out the offense. This team averages 205 per game on the ground. It's a little better than UNT with sophomore DeAndre Torrey, although I will say this. For anybody who watched the FAU game, and I know you did, Drew, the Florida Atlantic game, Torrey went off in that contest with a really long touchdown run in the third quarter that helped North Texas gain the victory. But in the last 2 games, North Texas went for 208 on the ground against Florida Atlantic and for 196, almost 6 yards per carry against Texas San Antonio. So the ground game has come on a little bit, but I do think that Utah State's a little more diverse, over 200 both ways, rush and pass. Jordan Love and Mason Fine, that should be the main headline of this game. Both great quarterbacks in their own right, not Power 5 quarterbacks, but certainly they'll make their way to the NFL. Love with a better chance in my estimation, than Mason Fine just based on size. But Mason Fine has had a tremendous year, and he's an accurate thrower of the football. So he's going to get his chances in the NFL, whether it be starter or backup. I think Love is the higher draft choice at this point in time. A little advantage here maybe to the Utah State wide receivers, right? Ronquavian Tarver, Jalen Green, these two guys go 6'3" and 6'2", 215, 205 respectively. Those are big wide receivers. For anybody who's watched Utah State play football this season, those wide receivers have caused a lot of trouble for smaller cornerbacks thus far this year. I don't think North Texas, as I went over the schedule, has seen a pair like this, and you have to throw in tight end Dax Raymond for Utah State, big factor as well. In the North Texas's favor here, fundamentally, if starting corner Deontay Fortenberry is unable to go for Utah State, that opens up a huge advantage for North Texas. Both of these teams really good offensively. North Texas has been stellar defensively this season. I mean, the progress that they made between last year and this year on the defensive side of the football has been pretty awesome. Season ATS, last thing I'll go over here real quick, Drew. You get contradictory numbers here because Utah State is 8-3 over the total this year with one push. They have cashed a lot of tickets for me on overplays this year. But the extreme antithesis of that is North Texas, 1-10-1 under the total this year. They've played one over in 12 games with Mason Fine and that offense. So that goes to show you the improvement they've made on the defensive side of the football. Contradictory numbers there. Like I say, total sits somewhere in the 67 range right now. But this should be a real good football game. And there's a lot to, if you're handicapping it, there's a lot to go through there.
Yeah, great breakdown there, Robbie. And that is the New Mexico Bowl, 2 p.m. Eastern kick. We also have a 1:30 p.m. Eastern kick, so going to run simultaneously to kick off bowl season. That's Tulane versus Louisiana in the Cure Bowl, this one in Orlando. But before we get to that, guys, we do have a coupon code for the podcast. It's CFB69, which college football, rest of the season, the bowl package on sportsmemo.com with any handicapper, Rob Vino in particular. It is $99 for the rest of the season throughout the national championship game. But with CFB69 as the coupon code, you can get it for just $69. So it's CFB college football 69, easy number to remember there, guys. So we'll get on to Cure Bowl, Robbie. We got Tulane, UL Lafayette, 3.5. The Tulane Green Wave laying 59 the total. We got some coaching news here, Robbie, as well. Not as much as the Utah State transition, but sounds like Willie Fritz had enough to do with his offensive coordinator of 7 years, I believe. A guy that followed him from, Sam Houston State to Georgia Southern to New Orleans as he's coaching with Tulane here. And he, I guess, showed him the door and bringing in a new OC. I'm not really sure exactly what's going to be happening with Tulane calling the plays. Either way, they're laying 3.5 here, 59 the total. How would you look to bet Tulane, Louisiana Lafayette in the Cure Bowl?
Yeah, an interesting game, Drew. And I'm going to take 20 quick seconds just to add to your promo plug there real quick. For those who are unfamiliar with bowl packages, my bowl packages over the bowl seasons throughout the years, what comes with that bowl package is what I like to call I used to call it the Grand Slam of 20 stars. We now call them 5% plays. But you get 4 of those in the bowl package. The bowl favorite, 5% underdog, 5% early bowl season total, 5% late bowl season total. So you get 4 or 5% plays inside that bowl package. Just figured that should be thrown out there so that you guys listen and know that. Doug Roos is the guy you're talking about, Drew, the offensive coordinator for Tulane, who Willie Fritz did have enough of, fired November 27th. And it looks like Willie Fritz will take play calling duties for this game. It could be a little bit of a compilation of head coaches, but it looks like Coach Fritz is going to be front and center as far as that's concerned. I don't know that it's that big of a deal in this particular case because Fritz knows his offense inside and out, so I think the offense for Tulane will be just fine. First off, in Orlando, Florida, for this game, we'll go right through the weather here. It's a 1:30 local start. Might get a little rain in the morning, but it looks like real nice temperatures here, high of 71, winds 10 to 20 miles per hour. But I don't know that makes a difference in this game, Drew, seeing that both of these teams are so heavily run predicated. I don't know that wind makes much of a difference in this particular game. Aside from the offensive coordinator for Tulane, there are no coaching changes in this one. Situational and motivational, let's take a look at that angle here. Tulane is in their first bowl game since 2013. Full 5-year absence from the bowls. Willie Fritz finally has them there, so you know Tulane's going to be highly motivated to play this football game. But the same can be said for ULL. Billy Napier and his coaching staff in their very first year gets Louisiana Lafayette right into a bowl game. This team will be fully focused. Anybody who watched that championship game against Appalachian State, the Sun Belt Championship, you can see that Napier has this program on the right track. Remember that when he came in and got this job, he told anybody who would listen that he was going to run this program in the mold of the way Nick Saban runs Alabama. Obviously, UL Lafayette cannot get the talent that Alabama gets, but the structure of the program, the offensive philosophy, the defensive philosophy, all the same. And you saw a lot of that in that game against App State, where UL Lafayette, to me, to my eyes, looked like a very, very physical team that's come on toward the end of the season. Might be a case where we say this during the season, but it might be a case here in this bowl game where you take your season statistics, the overall statistics, and throw them by the wayside and just go based on what's going on here late in the season. UL Lafayette, a poor defense all season long, but seemed to be a little bit better. Could have been the second time around facing Appalachian State, tape and whatnot, but it does look like to me that this team's on the right track here with making some improvements. Fundamentally, in this contest, to me, Drew, the number one factor is the quarterback play. Other people might see it differently, but you get the split quarterback situation out of ULL. 64.4% completions this season. Levi Lewis, the sophomore, who can be a more effective runner getting out of the pocket, not necessarily designed runs, although they do bring him in with designed run packages. But even if he drops back, he can break the pocket if the play breaks down. Surprisingly to me, Drew, and the sample size isn't the same. Nunez obviously has thrown the ball a lot more than Lewis has this season. But Lewis's quarterback rating is off the chart, 194.3. He's been a more effective passer in much more limited time. So I still, Andre Nunez is still their passing quarterback. But Levi Lewis, when he's brought in, he's not just there anymore to run the football like he was as a freshman. He can do both. On the other side of the coin, you have the LSU transfer, Justin McMillan. Not a great year throwing the football, 68 of 136, 50%, 9 TDs, 3 interceptions. Willie Fritz has done wonders with this team, having to be so heavily predicated upon the run. I know that's his offensive style, but even at Georgia Southern, you liked when Fritz's teams had the ability to throw over the top, much like the service academies, and have a quarterback who could complete those throws. Justin McMillan just has not been it so far this season. Could be a good advantage for Louisiana Lafayette with their quarterbacking, especially in the passing game, over Tulane's. The power ground game that ULL possesses, I talked about a little bit just before. It goes beyond just the backs who have been outstanding sophomores, Trey Reagans, Elijah Mitchell. That's as good a sophomore tandem as there is in non-Power 5 football. The offensive line was rooting up the Appalachian State defensive line in that game a couple of weeks ago. So look for them to try and continue that power type game against Tulane here. ULL's run defense, like I said earlier, overall statistics show them to be really bad. We'll see if they can perform against this option style attack of Tulane. Tulane's pass defense, a little bit of a question to go along with what I said earlier about Lafayette having a bit of an advantage in the throwing game. The schedule was another thing that stuck out to me here, Drew, because Tulane has played the far more difficult schedule. No question about it. In power ratings that I keep, on average, Tulane was playing an opponent 5 points better week by week than was UL Lafayette. So that's a huge, huge number. Tulane has faced 8 bowl teams this season coming from the much stronger American Athletic Conference. ULL has only faced 5, and you could say 4 because they faced Appalachian State twice. So his schedule definitely goes to Tulane. We know that in these contests, a lot of times if both teams are fully focused, scheduling comes into play. I think Tulane's a little more battle-tested.
Guys, we got a few more bowl games here, but before we get too far, want to say the reminder. It is Tuesday, meaning it's $2 Tuesday every Tuesday on sportsmemo.com, where one play is just $2. Check it out on the homepage, front page of sportsmemo.com. $2 Tuesday. Robbie, we got a few more bowl games, also some FCS games to go over. Some guys on Twitter asking about those. We got Arizona State, Fresno State up next, 53.5 the total. Looks like Fresno State laying 4. Obviously we got the Mountain West versus the Pac-12, so maybe a little bit of the scheduling, strength of schedule aspect here. But either way, this one in Las Vegas, Arizona State, Fresno State. How would you look to bet it, Robbie?
Yeah, and early on I talked about some of these bowl games having difficult weather situations over the years. Living in Las Vegas for the 12 years that I did and frequenting this particular bowl game, it seemed like we always got bad winds, heavy winds in this game, cold temperatures. Not the case this year. I'm sure the Chamber of Commerce in Las Vegas loves the fact that the weather's going to be outstanding for this particular contest. They finally get a good game, 12:30 local start. Not finally get a good game, but they finally get good weather for their game. 62 degrees the high in this contest, so no problems where weather is concerned. Also, no problems where coaching is concerned. Jeff Tedford, we all know, has absolutely turned the Fresno State program around in a couple of short years, and Herm Edwards did a far better job, exceeded all expectations of the public, at least. Maybe not inside the Arizona State Athletic Department or inside the football team room. Certainly for bettors, handicappers, college football insiders who doubted the hiring of Herm Edwards, really did a much better job than anybody thought here, and the team has fallen into line and done real well under his leadership in their first year. If we get to the situational and motivational category here, the one that stands out obviously is N'Keal Harry, top wide receiver, possibly a first-round NFL draft choice here. Not going to play in this game for NFL draft prep. There's a lot of these situations going on across bowl season, guys opting out and looking to work on their NFL careers and getting ready for the combine rather than playing the bowl game. N'Keal Harry's a big deal to the Arizona State offense. He's quarterback Manny Wilkins' top option. Those guys have a real good rapport together. These numbers explain it best, Drew. N'Keal Harry has 33 more receptions than the number 2 receiver on this team, Kyle Williams. He's got 656 more receiving yards than the second best receiver on this team, Kyle Williams. And he's got 9 touchdowns to Kyle Williams' 1. So you can see the gaping hole that's left behind without N'Keal Harry being on the field. Teams have been forced to tilt coverages towards Harry all season long. That won't be the case here. You'll get strict man or strict zone, but you won't have to shade to worry about N'Keal Harry in this game, which helps Fresno State out. And, not a pass defense that needs a lot of help either because it's been real good this season. But real quick to finish off on the motivational stuff here for Fresno State. Last year in Tedford's first year, they upset Houston 33-27. So they should be, again, second year pretty motivated in this contest against a Pac-12 opponent. I think always the group of 5 teams against the Power 5 teams, you have a motivational edge there. ASU, you can't sell them short on motivation, though, because if there's one thing Herm Edwards is great at, it's motivating a football team. And even without Harry, he'll have his team ready to go. They were blown out last year, 52-31 by NC State in their bowl appearance, so they want to redeem themselves for that game as well. I don't think you have much of a motivational edge in this contest. I think the absence of Harry is huge, but motivation-wise, I think both teams will come to play. Go through the fundamentals real quick. Just talked about how Fresno State's pass defense didn't need much help, and they're getting some with Harry being out of this game. It's the number 29 ranked pass defense in the country, to go along with the 27th ranked run defense. So 2 top 30 units on the field for Fresno State. It's been their bread and butter all season long, but what's been overlooked in Fresno State's case has been the play of quarterback Marcus McMaryion. Manny Wilkins, a little bit more of a household name than Marcus McMaryion. We don't get a lot of Fresno State on regular television here. Those of us who watch every game, whether it be online streaming or whatever, we see Marcus McMaryion. But how about these numbers? 69.8% completions, almost 70% completions for the year. And it's not cheap. It's not because Fresno does not throw the football. He's got 3,453 passing yards. Best of all, 25 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, better than 8-to-1 ratio. You don't see that in college football hardly at all. That's a huge advantage for Fresno State. And maybe when, a lot of times in bowl games, Drew, I like to take guys that play the same position but sort of come in with a chip on their shoulder because their counterpart gets more attention. I think Manny Wilkins draws more attention. McMaryion will play with that chip on his shoulder. I think that's an advantage for Fresno State. An advantage for Arizona State here, real quick, is the fact that as good as Fresno State's defense is, how about Arizona State having to play Washington and Utah inside the Pac-12, who I would venture to say have better defenses than does Fresno State, as good as Fresno's is. But against Washington, Arizona State was able to cover that game, only lose 27-20 somehow, some way. They fought and clawed and got the cover. And then against Utah, they absolutely offensively steamrolled that Utah defense. 251 rushing yards, 285 passing yards, 536 total. In that game, they outgained Utah by 211 total yards, win it going away 38-20. So Arizona State has seen tough defenses this year and cashed both tickets. So just because Fresno State's got the really great defense, don't know that automatically is a reason to run to the window with Fresno State. Obviously, as I said earlier, N'Keal Harry was a part of those 2 games, not going to be a part of this one. It does make a difference. ATS numbers for the season real quick. Fresno 9-4 against the spread, 3-9 under the total, but more than that, if we want to stretch it out a little farther, their last 9 games played, Fresno State is 8-1 under the total for guys that like to play totals in these games.
Robbie, we got a couple more games here. We got the Raycom Camellia Bowl from Montgomery, Alabama, 5:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. 207-208 Eastern Michigan from the MAC versus Georgia Southern from the Sun Belt. 47.5 the total. This one bouncing around a little bit. Pretty competitively priced game. Tough one. Tricky handicap in my opinion. 1.5 now. Georgia Southern is laying there in Montgomery. How would you look to bet Eastern Michigan, Georgia Southern, Robbie?
Yeah, there's a little bit to look at here, right? Just because of the Georgia Southern offensive style, the philosophy, the triple option stuff. Start it once again with the weather, which should be good here. Don't see any problems. It's a 4:30 p.m. local start, 54-degree high. This game will cross over, obviously, probably end about 8 o'clock at night. So you're going to cross from late afternoon into evening. You're looking probably between 45 and 54 degrees. But wind is not notable here. Precipitation is not notable here. Coaching changes. Well, this game, they did not get a bowl bid last year. They went to the Bahamas Bowl in 2016. Tough one in that contest, 24-20 to Old Dominion. So in that contest, 24-20 to Old Dominion out of Eastern Michigan, who was like Eastern Michigan, who was to be highly motivated in this game for Georgia Southern. Highly motivated in this game for Georgia. First-year head coach Chad Lunsford came in and really swept up. Georgia Southern because Tyson Summers had led Southern because Tyson says shambles, but no problem fixing it. But no problem reinstalled Willie Fritz's offense. He was installed Willie Fritz's offense, and Georgia Southern had a Georgia Southern were against the spread. They have not been to a bowl game spread. They have not been to a spread. They have not been to. They will have them motivated to be in one here. Them motivated to be in one here. We just don't have in these minor bowl games and these company have in these minor bowl games and these motivational edge. I think all of these teams are motivational edge. I think all of these so that part of the handicap may get thrown down the total. Part of the handicap may get thrown down in these first 5 games. But Lunsford has led this 5 games. But Lunsford is fundamentals talked about it a minute ago. EMU against the Bills talked about it a minute ago. EMU they played Army. They lost number. They played Army. They lost are a little bit contradictory here because at first 9 bit contradictory here because at against Eastern Michigan, but Eastern Michigan That's actually pretty good. Better than allowing 288 at first. Better than glance. But if you dig into Eastern Michigan, and they have been the absolute kings of the heartbreaking kings loss all season long. But as far as rush numbers by their defense, but as far as bets this year, Purdue's not noted for running for three. Purdue's not 41 and 8.1 per carry against Eastern Michigan. Illinois, 1 per carry, had a dismal offense all season long. Somehow they ran against each season long. Michigan, not a lot per carry, but 235 out of is worthy of per carry, but 2 noting here. Toledo, balanced offense, ran 4.4. Balanced pop, and Bull State, again, the team running the football. Down on the team's throats, 227 and 7.1, 427 and sad games defensively against Eastern Michigan. Games where Eastern defensively against Michigan played pretty well against the run, so their defensive statistics are horrible. But I think the run, so their when you're dealing with an offense like Georgia's run and with an offense run again, you have to worry about those numbers. If you're East Southern quarterback, you have to worry about those numbers. High words, certainly a threat to run the ball. Him back Wesley Fields may certainly a threat to run up a pretty good tandem. Quarterback running back, I remember good tandem. Quarterback running back on the podcast maybe 4 weeks ago. Maybe 4 weeks ago, which game it was, but Wesley Fields was out of that contest. The next week when he came back, they started to, it took him a week when he came back, they started to, but Wesley Fields makes a big difference in that. Wesley Fields makes a big difference. Played the best run defense they play. Played the best run defense they play. Eastern Michigan's pretty stout. Eastern Michigan's pretty stout. Best team that Georgia's run deep team that Georgia beat Appalachian State, and they really ran Appalachian State, and they really ran surprise that game was they dominated from start to carries. That game was they dominated from start to against App State's run defense, gained 270 on defense, half per carry. It's the most rushing yards allowed to any team. Most rushing yards by App State, including Penn State from the Big Ten. So that's a state from the Big Ten. To me, that Georgia Southern can run the football here. Georgia Southern can run their ground game for a couple of weeks. It then came on the last 2 weeks of the season, but it then came on. If that's reality or a little bit of a mirage to me, because reality or Georgia Southern posted at the end of the year were against real weak Sun Belt run D. Here we're against real Carolina, Georgia State. Neither one stopped the date. We'll see how they fare against Eastern Michigan. I think you can contradict fare against Eastern Michigan on both sides of that particular angle. Of that. On the defensive side of the football, what I would do and what I think you'll see, what I created is they're going to stack the box and force. They're going to stack the box and football because EMU has a really good pass. Because EMU has a really good. Georgia Southern can't throw the football whatsoever. Georgia Southern can't throw the football. Just throw a couple of men out there in a single high safety and put a couple of men out there in a single high safety triple option offense. We'll see if that's what they do. I think it is what an offense. We'll see if that's what they do. I think potentially, in these bowl games, in these bowl offenses may get to you early first couple of drives, but may get to you early first couple of drives. Michigan may get to you early first couple of drives. Would be in pretty good shape here. Their offense more diverse, pretty good shape here. Their offense more Southern offense. Eastern Michigan has the ability to run offense. Eastern Michigan has the ability. Quarterback Tyler Wiegers, since my starback Tyler Wiegers. But Wiegers has much more of a incomplete
All right, Robbie, great breakdown. We got the coupon code CF for the rest of the coupon code Robbie Vino or any handicapper on Sportsmemo. Ball season all the way on Sportsmemo through the national championship for just $69. That's CF $69 FB 69 at checkout. Kyle Honeysett 9 at check on Twitter, who wrote us a question. By the way, Twitter, who wrote us a question. Really, ask any question you want, betting wise, college football, any question you want, betting wise, college football, hell, life advice if you want. Just send it to life advice if you want. Just send Rob Vino Sports or myself at Drew Vino Sports or myself at, and happy to answer it for you on the podcast. We got asked to answer it for you on the podcast. We got a conversation about South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Eastern South Dakota State, North Dakota State. We'll get at that right now. We got one. We'll get at that right now. We got one follow it up, but for this, Robbie, why don't we this games real quickly? I believe one of them is Friday night, 8 p.m. East. One of them is Friday. We got South Dakota State, North Dakota State. Seeing, it's a North Dakota State. Right now, there will be more lines available as we get closer to 4 lines available morning, maybe tomorrow. But 51 the total. Seeing, but 50 skate. Got any opinion here on South Dakota State, North Dakota? Got any opinion here on?
Yeah, you know what? It's two teams that know each other real well. You get two Missouri Valleys that know each other real. Each other played each other earlier in this same venue. The Fargo in this same has gotten a lot of publicity over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. Over the course of the last game was close. Drew 21-17. North Dakota State at home wins 17. North in the fourth quarter touchdown run by their quarterback. One of the best names, the quarterback. One of the but how about their quarterback, Easton Stick? He gets the Easton Stick win that game. Two of the best teams two of the best this year, if not the 2 best teams. As far as my power here, if not the 2 best teams. As far as teams in FCS, I would rank them 1 and 2. In FCS, I would rank them 1 and 2. A little gauge on a little gauge in this one. I made this game North Dakota State at home minus 2. I made this game North Dakota State at home that has gotten carried all the way down to 8.5. A lot of South Dakota carried all the way down to 8.5. A lot of South because it doesn't take much money to move these. Take much money to move every week throughout the season. But there has been South Dakota support this season. But there has been South Dakota for this season. But there has been South Dakota. Their defense last couple of weeks has been great. Defense last couple of weeks has been down the last couple of weeks. Triple option team in Kennesaw in the last couple of weeks. Triple option team in State in bad weather. Went to Kennesaw. Georgia. Bad weather. Went to Kennesaw. You know, in all the articles that I had read, as to whether or not they were really certain, as to whether or not they really were, they had enough offense of their own. They had enough offense of their own in the country. Do it both ways. 235 on the ground, 250. So it's a ways 235. Formidable opponent. Before we get to Dakota State, before we always win stuff, South Dakota State, if there's one team, this ain't could be South Dakota State if there's billed as the FCS championship game right here, no disrespect, championship game right here, that made the Final Four, but it probably is the 2 best teams at home. Probably is. Motivational stuff here. Chris Klein, coach. Chris for North Dakota State has a job. So Dakota State, he remains the head coach, but I think that provides a motivational angle coach. But I think that for North Dakota State, these kids are going to play their tails off for kids are going to play their tail this game, and if they win in the championship game, certainly, and if they win in the championship game, full 100% effort out of them, not the 100% effort out of them, add fuel to the fire. So Chris Kleiman made to the fire. So Chris Kleiman out here, sort of a last hurrah type contest. And sort of a last hurrah type contest. Dakota State, they do it. They one way only. It's power football. So much only. It's power football. Power football as you watch them just dominate. Here and football as you watch them just dominate. Is the FCS power rating I've had. Doing this power rating I've had. 9 years worth of FCS power ratings. 9 years worth of FCS power rating I've ever had in FCS. It's had in FCS. But South Dakota State is the one opponent that knows them inside out. So it's the one opponent. I can't really disagree with people that support the South Dakota State. People that support points of 11. At this point, though, founded on all sides of the team is.
And Robbie, we got one more FCS game before we finish off the Bowl Pod. FCS game before we see you App State. We got the Maine Black Bears versus Eastern Washington laying 11 with 59 being the total. 11 with 59.
Only have had one FCS playoff selection. Had one FCS this season, but it was last week's Weber State. When I released it, it was 48. Crashed all the way down to. I think I saw as low as all the way down to. I think I saw the end. Game did stay under. Game did stay under. Game between Maine and Weber State, and that's how Maine has made their Maine and Weber State, and that's how Maine has made on the defensive side of the football. On the defensive side of the football, manner for those who watched that game last week. You got those who watched that game last week. Got their starting quarterback back a couple of weeks. Really helped. Got their starting quarterback back a couple of. Without him, they're a different squad. But to ask him, they're a different squad. But to go to Weber State, win that sizable underdog, and then have to go to perfect underdog, and then have to go against that high-flying offense. A little bit different. High-flying offense, a little bit different. Had an offense that averages about 350 yards per game. They pick up yardage in chunks, and certainly it's a much more difficult matchup for their defense. I think difficult matchup for the Coast to West Coast 2 games in a row is an awful lot. They really play hard for their head coach, who, by the way, years of age, for their head coach, the main head coach. But I think this one probably too difficult coach. But I think for them, I did not or have not yet for this particular contest. So please, by all means, those listening, go in the red turf in Eastern Washington on Saturday, play a part in Washington in it. But as for right now, just looking at this situation, just look at value angle. I feel like Eastern angle. I feel like go in this game real quick for those interest game, real quick for those in this particular contest. Trying to find a particular contest. Trying to hear Drew, and I'm having a difficult time. Eastern Washington, obviously the favorite. The third highest. Eastern Washington, obviously the favorite. The third highest for me in FCS right now. To me in FCS right now, somewhat throughout the season. Didn't hype somewhat throughout the season. Didn't rate a team, but certainly has come back. I can get you the number here. That's the hope.
Hey, Robbie.
The number here. That's the hope. I have it right now. Before I finally found it amongst all these games. Eastern Washington found it amongst all these games. So obviously, like I said earlier, I think it's a difficult task for Maine. I think for me, if weather isn't really, really bad, I would go ahead and play Eastern Washington here if they get a dry track. Eastern Washington here.
Robbie, for the FCS games, we got one bowl game left here, and CS games, we got one code CFB69 at checkout, $69 rest of the season. It's all checkout, 69. Remember it every Tuesday at sportsmemo.com. Great time, sportsmemo.com board. We got 209-210, 209-210. Big easy. The RNL Carriers SU from Conference USA versus App State from Conference USA versus Generate Special, whatever you want to call it, Robbie. Saturday night, 9 p.m. Special, whatever you want to call it, Robbie. Saturday night. The total looks like 6.5 or 7. Total looks like 6.5 or 7. Making sure you're getting the best of the number, whichever you're getting the best of the number. If you're getting the best of the number, 6.5 or 7. That's App State laying the number at or 7. That's App State laying the Robbie. Wait, Robbie, this is the New Orleans Bowl. This
game's played in the dome. We have no weather. This game's played in the dome. We have no weather. Game that could feature some rain. The turf could feature some rain inside the dome. I think you have to look towards. I think you have to look at Stockstill Swanson here. Quarterback Brent last game here. Coach's son on the field. Middle Tennessee. against UAB. Last two games against Conference USA this year. He throws for 3-6 USA this year. He throws for 76 and 64% of his passes. 76 and 64% of his passes to Appalachian State. So I think Middle Tennessee can have Appalachian State. So I think Middle Tennessee. And once again, like I said earlier, stock still I'm putting 8 in the box. Game to try and go ahead and beat me. And if they can't, I think you have to try and go ahead and beat me. And if they can't, I think taking in this game, you'll get teams for sure. Because it's the last game for Brent Stock. Coach Rick Stock still coaching his son. I think you get a little emotional. Stock still coaching his son. I think you get a little value up in value TSU's favor. So as long as you can catch this large is the way to favor. So as long as you can catch this large, go here. I didn't find an awful lot as far as numbers are concerned to go ahead and give out difference maker in this particular contest. The only thing I can say, Middle Tennessee, the only thing I can see side in second halves this year, they win 9 halves this year under the total. Perhaps of defensive adjustments made by Middle Tennessee at halves. A little bit of a product of MTSU having leads at the hosting homes. MTSU having, for what it's worth, Middle Tennessee 3-9 with a push red in second half. 3-9 with a so far this season.
All right, Robbie, anything else you want to throw up? All right, Robbie, anything else?
One more time for those getting involved in the bowl games. I happen to be where the packages consist of the bowl games. You'll get a lot of bowl plays. I love these games. Get a lot of bowl plays. I love the flyer away plays here, and as I mentioned earlier, Grand Slam of 20 stars. Now the Grand Slam of 20 stars. Now the Grand Slam throughout this bowl season. So pretty good products this bowl season. So pretty generally sit here true and tout pack. I can sit here true and tout the affection I have for the bowl season and the fact that is that you might be getting pretty good value here. Hopefully for all our listeners, and we get a lot of game selection listeners, and we get a lot of
said Robbie, and I can vouch for that. Robbie's been great in bowl season as well. It's a different type of handicap. Motivation comes in, coaching angles, that motivation comes in. So Robbie's been great the last few years. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but last few years profitable. And with that coupon code CFB69 at coupon code CFB.com, you can get the rest of his college football bowl season for just college football discount off the retail price. Also, it's $2 Tuesday. Check that price. We'll be back next Tuesday with Robbie Vino on. He's heading out with Robbie Vino on City, right, Robbie? Tomorrow or Thursday, and you're going to be at the game? Thursday, and you're going to be at the game?
Thursday night, it just happened to fall into place, Drew. My son, it just happened to fall into place, Drew. Saturday, so we're going to be out there anyway. And tickets back in August. I had no clue. AFC 11-2 and 10-3 respectively. Pat Mahomes 11-2 and 10-3 respectively. Pat fired up to get into that stadium and just close and personal. I know that between that stadium they battle for that. Very anxious to be in the stadium that night. What'll be a pack? Anxious to be in the stadium that night.
Fun.
Anxious to be in the stadium that night.
We'll talk with you next Tuesday. Best of luck with your bets. For tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with some borrow on sportsmemo.com. But guys, best.
Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.